Welcome back to A Man in a Sea of Lies. Welcome from Humber Marshes. Tonight is Thursday, and a few things came up today in our media debate, political debate, and one of the first items on the agenda when it comes to our Canadian news was this restaurateur who defied defied orders during the pandemic about opening restaurant, running a restaurant, and he openly defied the rules. And he got charged several times, I believe. I don't remember his name. I don't remember the name of the restaurant. It's not important here for this purpose. What I wanted to mention is that the lawyer for the province of Ontario argued in court there is no such thing in our Canadian Constitution. No, there's no such thing as a guarantee for somebody to open a restaurant and serve food to people. So we interpret our Constitution in many different ways. One of the most striking things that I find is that we interpret our Constitution in a way that when it comes to freedom of association, for example, this Supreme Court of Canada has stated that people have a right to form a union. It doesn't matter what kind of a union, as long whatever. It's freedom of association, and that I believe the issue was the freedom to strike by public service unions. And that's supposed to be covered by freedom of association in Canada. But somebody opening a restaurant and serving food to people, it's supposed to have a specific guarantee in our Constitution. I don't know what these people are smoking. I don't know how those lawyers can even come up with stuff like that. But they do, and they did. So that's kind of crazy to me, and speaks to me. It speaks to the weakness of our Constitution, and speaks to the weakness of our Canadian Charter of Rights, and it speaks to the weakness of our courts interpreting the Constitution, interpreting the Charter of Rights. Well, I realize that serving food to people should be regulated in some way. Of course, it's food, so you have to regulate it somehow. But stating in court openly by a lawyer that there's no guarantee in the Constitution that someone has the right to open up a restaurant and serve food to people is so ridiculous and so far-fetched that I find it really difficult to believe. Another item that came up on the news today, of course, is Austin Matthews came back from the U.S. after the Olympics, after the visit to the White House, and the press, our Canadian press, predictably, started slamming him, questioning him about the visit to the White House. Olympians and other champions visiting the White House has been a staple in the U.S. for forever, But now suddenly, because it's Donald Trump, we can't have that. So we question the integrity of guys, young hockey players like Austin Matthews. We question their integrity because they had the audacity to visit the White House. I'll leave it at that. I really don't know what to say. I mean, it's just so stupid and so far-fetched. It's difficult to believe that this kind of thing is happening. And that brings us to another item, the tensions with India. Because Carney is traveling to India, and all of a sudden the press remembered that our security services, and our federal police had all kinds of questions about Indian government's involvement in all kinds of criminal activity in Canada, right? So I don't remember anything in the news back then, maybe for a day or something, a few years back or something. But now that comes up, I mean, this is engineered by the Liberal Party and by the media that they're so happy to run cover for Carney. It's crazy. It's bullshit news because it deflects. It deflects of the shortcomings of Carney's policies, especially economic policies in Canada, and especially dealing with Donald Trump. Like, he was elected on the basis of him, deal with Donald Trump. But all he's done, and most other politicians in Canada, they just confronted Trump all the time. They keep slamming Donald Trump, and in return, they expect what exactly? I mean, you have to use your imaginations sometimes. If you trying to negotiate with someone any kind of a deal, and before you come sit down at the table, you continue to slam somebody all the time, and then you expect to negotiate a fair deal with that person. I don't even know what these people are thinking. You can criticize Trump's policies on merit, of course, but we relentlessly slam Donald Trump for everything. And then we expect him to do what exactly in return? Be nice to us? It's bullshit news, possibly planned and triggered by the Liberal Party. I'm not a conservative hack or anything like that. I don't even associate myself with the Conservative Party of Canada. But it goes deeper than that. Later on in the news cycle, I've heard people slamming some opposition politicians for not mentioning Donald Trump in their speeches or press releases or whatever. So not even mentioning Donald Trump is a liability. How can you make a statement and not mention Donald Trump? So now, of course, Poilievre, of course, finally succumbed to this thing, and he gave a speech today in Toronto to a business crowd, and I guess, I don't know, maybe he realized that the only way to gain some traction with Canadians is to do the same thing everybody else does, slam Donald Trump. So he did. My suspicion is that Poilievre had the idea of staying neutral when it comes to Donald Trump, and maybe if he ever won an election, maybe he would cut a deal. Like, he didn't want to come across as a Trump hater because of the possibility of future negotiations with the United States when it comes to trade with Canada. But it cost him the election, and it cost him so much political capital. And the floor crossings and all that other stuff, I guess he felt he had no choice. So now what? What's going to happen with our ongoing trade negotiations with the United States? What's going to happen with that now? So now everybody's on board when it comes to slamming Donald Trump. It gets worse. If any politician or public official makes a statement about anything, if they don't mention Donald Trump, that's a liability right there. So we just completely painted ourselves into a corner. Not mentioning Donald Trump is a political liability now. You can't say anything about anything without mentioning Donald Trump. Otherwise, you lose credibility. So now Poilievre is attacking Donald Trump, but this him jumping on the bandwagon of slamming Donald Trump, it's a little too late, too little too late. Even when it comes to scoring that extra political capital with Canadians, right? Because the mood of Canadians is firmly set now. They prop Carney in this thing. So the bandwagon thing is not going to work. The media is running cover for Carney, and it's so deeply ingrained in the rhetoric and the tone of the conversations that, as far as I'm concerned, Poilievre is done. He's finished. And that brings me to a point I made before. I don't think the conservatives are that stupid. I think they wanted to keep this anti-Trump rhetoric in check before, because they were thinking in terms of future negotiations with the United States. But this is over now, right? So my point is, I don't think the conservatives really want power. I don't think they want to win an election. And they're not stupid people. They have strategies. They have analysts. They know what the numbers are like. They know the political and situation in Canada. They know the economic situation in Canada. They are aware of all the indicators. So winning an election now for the Conservatives would be a very difficult thing to manage, because all the economic indicators are pointing to a decline in the Canadian economy. So do you want to be in power in times like that? You don't. You want to stay in the cozy rooms of the opposition party. You can continue to criticize without any liability to yourself at all. So the Conservatives are cooked. Carney's plan is working very well, but he's going to India, Australia, Japan now. It's fine, and we're gonna sign a free trade agreement with India now. What are we going to trade exactly with India? Not to mention that it's halfway across the world, but I don't know what we're going to what would we possibly be trading with India. Our economy is three-quarters integrated with the U.S. economy. And now we're gonna build a free trade relationship with India. It's the same thing with Mexico, but the United States is ahead of us with Mexico as well, right? So that's going nowhere. And now India. It might be beneficial to us to do something with Australia and Japan, because these are advanced countries like we are. Especially Japan. Australia, I think we trade with Australia a little bit. But they're very similar to us. They're resource-rich, sort of, basically a resource-rich economy. They make a shed load of money with trading with Asia when it comes to the resources. As far as the other aspect, their manufacturing is cooked as well, right? So. But Australia is Australia. part of our, British heritage. So that's one thing. Japan is a highly advanced country, so sure, let's see what we can do with Japan. But India, so it all has very little substance. It's all about political posturing. That's all I always talk about that. The liberals are experts at this. Posturing, grandstanding. Talking a lot, doing very little. I'm not going to go back into all the economic indicators that show us that our economy is suffering badly right now, and we better, stop digging. Let's just stop digging. Let's calm down things with Donald Trump. He's going to possibly go away very soon anyway. So let's just stop digging. And let's start about thinking about the working class in Canada who are just struggling big time right now. Yeah, but the chattering class, the activists, the politicians, the Karens with their poodles walking their poodles in Rosedale, they have no idea what's going on in the real world. Certainly, it seems that politicians in Ottawa don't have any idea what's going on in the real world. I'm sure the people that advise our politicians know what's going on, but to them it's irrelevant. They'd rather score political points. They'd rather gain political capital so they can stay in power. And our media is not helping. They're running cover for Carney. They're even running cover in some ways to Doug Ford, who turned out to be just another liberal, not a conservative. He's doing a lot of things that I like. He's been building transit. He's building highways. He made parts of the 407 highway free for motorists. So he's doing a lot of things that are correct. But as far as fiscal policy, for example, he's doing the same. He's even worse than Kathleen Wynne was, or Dalton McGuinty. These people are not thinking about our future. They're thinking about themselves. And this posturing that there are some sort of noble people serving the Canadian people is bullshit. And the media is just running cover, like I said, for that. And I don't know if Canadians are ever going to wake up to this reality. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a political hack. I've just been observing Canadian and Ontario politics for over 40 years now, So Canadians better wake up and stop focusing so much on Donald Trump. He's going to go away eventually. There's a lot of things we have accomplished with the United States of America as far as trade, manufacturing, defense, all kinds of stuff, and then we're going to set that aside because of our emotions and feelings. It's all, like part of the problem is feminization of society, right? We dealing with politics with our emotions. It's always been that way to a certain degree, but now it's completely blowing out of control. Out of control. And it's only going to hurt us. We going straight into this hole like South America did years ago, like Argentina and Brazil, and we, even Western Europe, we think they're great, but they aren't. they're killing themselves too, just like us, because of misguided policies when it comes to manufacturing, climate, you name it, spending. You know, we better wake up sometime soon. Thanks for listening.